Hi, I'm Andrew Brandt, the director of the Jeffrey Morad Center for Sports Law here at Villanova Law School. And what I thought I'd do is take a look back at the year 2012, the year in the NFL, the business and legal issues that dominated the year. Let's look at the top 5. In no specific order, let's start with the bounties. That was the long-running saga for 2012. The Saints, the 4 Saints that were in what Commissioner Roger Goodell called leadership positions, were suspended in differing amounts throughout the year. We went through 2 arbitrations, an appeals panel, a hearing by Commissioner Goodell, a rehearing by Commissioner Goodell, and finally a re-hearing by former Commissioner Paul Tagliabue, the result of which is no discipline. After 9 months of haggling back and forth through court cases, through arbitrations, through an appeals panel, through the CBA, through the media, it's over. No discipline attaches to these 4 players. However, let's be clear that in Paul Tagliabue's opinion, he did not say the players were cleared from wrongdoing. He did not exonerate them. He put the emphasis on the Saints and how bad a culture they developed in terms of the bounty culture and allowing this to persist, and really sticking it to Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator. But again, Sean Payton, the head coach, was above him, as was the organization. So it was a vicious condemnation of the Saints while allowing the players to get off. So the bounties end. The bounty suspensions are over. That 9-month long-running saga has ended. The second story, of course, is one that's going to continue for many years, perhaps. It's the biggest story in the NFL off the field right now, the concussions. And with concussions, we look at what is the protocol. In my mind, that's really what we have to get down to. You have some players coming back a week after a concussion. You had Joe Staley of the 49ers had a concussion on Sunday and played on Thursday night. On the other hand, Javid Best of the Detroit Lions, his last concussion was over a year ago, October 2011, still not back on the field. What's the protocol? How are we dealing with this? The health and safety measures advanced by the NFL under Roger Goodell have been great, a new positive trajectory towards protecting the head and neck, protecting against brain injuries, but all of this, including the bounty suspensions I just talked about, are against a backdrop of 4,000 former NFL players suing the NFL here in Philadelphia. These concussion lawsuits are amassing, no disciplines in a vacuum, no initiatives are in a vacuum, this is all related. This is the issue with a new CBA established with the players, 10 years, this is the issue facing NFL ownership. How are we going to deal with his concussions, and what about these lawsuits of players that now have physical and mental infirmities? Where is that going to go? We'll continue to keep an eye on that. The third big issue, let's look at a couple contracts. 2 of the A-listers of the NFL got new contracts this year. One is really an interesting one because his name is Peyton Manning, and he was released. That's right, he was released by the Indianapolis Colts, became a free agent, perhaps the NFL's version of LeBron, the biggest free agent ever. His decision came down to the Denver Broncos. And that set off quite a ripple, quite a chain reaction when he signed with Denver. Then you had the Cardinals had to pay Kevin Cobb. The Seahawks went and got Matt Flynn. The Jets did an extension with Mark Sanchez. The Titans had to keep Matt Hasselbeck. The San Francisco 49ers had to keep Alex Smith. All these ripples coming from Peyton Manning. He signed a deal that I thought was very interesting. It only guaranteed him $18 million. That's what he's making this year. Everything else is on the come. Coming off that neck injury, the Broncos protected themselves in case that wouldn't work out. As long as he passes the physical in March, which shouldn't seem to be a problem, he'll activate another $40 million guaranteed, a $58 million guarantee. That guarantee is only eclipsed by the other big contract this year of a quarterback. That's Drew Brees. $60 million guaranteed. It took a lot of hemming and hawing and negotiating, but it finally worked out in July where Drew Brees got a new contract, the biggest in NFL history, $60 million guarantee, in the middle of all their crisis we talked about in terms of this year with the bounties and everything else. So Drew Brees has set a new standard for quarterbacks. We'll see where that goes with people like Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Eli Manning up for contract in the next couple of years. The fourth story would have to be the replacements. We saw it happen all year. This was a big story throughout the summer, and everyone thought it would get resolved, but it didn't. So the NFL, unable to come to an agreement with the NFLRA, the NFL Referees Association, they had a negotiation, it didn't work out. They went with replacements. First 3 weeks of the season, you heard the tipping point against the Packers-Seahawks game. When they called that interception a touchdown, things went wild. In the next 2 days of round-the-clock negotiations, an agreement was reached. The issue between the refs and the NFL Every negotiation is business, but this was personal. NFL was trying to create a new culture, less entitlement, more accountability of these referees, that they would have to have full-time referees, that they have a deeper bench, they'd have backup referees in place all the time. That was important in the NFL, and they got that done. As for the refs, they got their all-important pension. They wanted that pension to stay in the new agreement. It does for the next 5 years, but it's an 8-year agreement. It goes away after 5 years. Therefore, we'll probably never see another pension in the next referee's agreement. But it's done, and soon after, of course, we saw standing ovations for these referees. I can tell you that'll be the only time ever you get referees getting a standing ovation. And now, of course, people are saying, bring back the replacements with some of these bad calls around the NFL lately. The story we're looking at for the big stories of 2012 is really looking ahead in the NFL. London calling. We had one game in London. Now there's an agreement to play 2 games next year with brand names like the Steelers and 49ers in those games as well. My sense is that 2 may double to 4. We may have a situation by the end of the decade. We're playing 4, 5, 6 games in London. I do not think it's beyond the realm to have a team in London, starting with the next CBA, which will probably begin about 2020. The reason for this is the NFL is looking under every rock for more revenue streams. This would be a great revenue stream, opening up football to a new market in Europe. As for LA, I don't know. My first NFL meeting was 1999. Number 1 on the agenda was LA. So now 13 years later, nothing in LA. I don't know where that's going, but I do think there's momentum for London. As for the travel considerations, yes, teams from London would come over here. They'd have to train over here for a few weeks while they play a road stand. And of course, they'd have long home stands in London. It could be worked out. The flight from the East Coast to London is less than the flight from the East Coast to Seattle. So sometimes we make too much of that. Those are the 5 biggest business and legal stories from the NFL. For the Morad Center Sports Law, I'm Andrew Brandt.